If it were to happen nowadays, the scathing look of death that would be sent towards the person that thought it was a good idea, everybody would know.
Hi, and welcome to 5 Random Questions, the show where every question is an adventure. I'm your host, Danny Brown, and each week I'll be asking my guest 5 questions created by a random question generator. The guest has no idea what the questions are, and neither do I, which means this could go either way. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into this week's episode. Today's guest is Manisha Solomon. Manisha is an archery mom, cyclist, gravel in particular, and a host and producer of the Archery Parent Podcast. She has one dog named Milo, a Border Collie / Australian Shepherd mix, who, according to Manisha, is the least herding dog you will ever meet. So Manisha, welcome to 5 Random Questions.
Thank you, Danny. I'm happy to be here.
You're very welcome. And I have to say, this is the first time, we've got 2 kids, 2 teens, and they're very into competitive sports. My son's into soccer, my daughter's into competitive cheer. So my wife is always known as the soccer mom or the cheer mom. But I've never come across an archery mom, which is very cool when I saw that come through. And obviously you get a podcast. So how did that come about?
Thank you. Yes, we archery moms are far and few between because archery is fairly limited. The accessibility is limited. It's not like soccer fields or basketball or even cheer, for example, where there are fields or gymnasiums or clubs that are willing to create a community. And so, yes, being an archery mom is different. My son started archery in 2014, sort of informally. And then when the Pan Am Games came to Toronto in 2015, the spark was lit. And from there, he became a competitive archer and is now on the Canadian national recurve team for the men's team. So it's been quite a climb. And he does represent Canada in international events. For 2024, he was an alternate for the Canadian men's recurve team for the Olympics.
That is very cool. I've ever known one other archer, like a proper archer, not watching TV or movies or anything in my life. And that's gone back to when I was in Scotland as probably a mid-20-year-old. And my friend who worked at the local record store, he was heavily into archer. A little bit older though. So it's cool to see your son get into at an early age. And was it just an interest that he saw on TV or at an event or when that got him into it?
He has always been a dirt, mud, sticks kind of kid. And so he used to make his own sort of bow and arrows out of sticks. And eventually he went into primitive skills and was a sort of survival wilderness instructor. And archery just came into that and has gripped him, and it is a passion and an obsession for him.
That is very cool. And I do have to ask, before we get into your random questions, which I'm looking forward to, I do have to ask, have you seen the Hunger Games movies with Jennifer Lawrence?
I have seen not all of them, to be honest.
Okay. Have you seen her use her bow and arrow?
Yes.
Her archery. What's her form like? How do you feel her form is as Katniss?
So what is interesting with Katniss, with the training that went into the Hunger Games, especially the first one, an American archer who at the time was part of the U.S. Olympic team, her name is Katuna Lorig. She was actually hired or contracted to be the assistant to teach Jennifer Lawrence how to shoot. So from what I hear, her form and her skill is the most accurate. However, her it is still for a movie, right? So they have a little bit of drama. They have a few different ways to make it more exciting. But yeah, it's not bad, I'll say.
Okay, so it's more than a passable attempt. It's a good representation, hopefully, of proper archery.
Yeah, it's not bad. Yeah.
All right. Well, very well. Speaking of not bad, ideally and hopefully we don't have any bad questions for you today. And so far, nobody's come up with bad questions in all previous episodes. So keeping this flow going. So Manisha, are you ready for this episode's 5 random questions?
I am.
Perfect. Let me just bring up the random question generator and we'll see what pops up. Okay, I feel, well, it's not a bad one to start it off. So Manisha, question number 1. What is one of the great values that guides your life?
I have a few, but one is everyone has something to teach and everyone has something to learn. That's a pretty major one for me. I go into life thinking that I don't know everything, although, as a podcaster, we're always supposed to position ourselves as the expert. However, even with archery, my son has been in the archery world since 2014. I've been an archery mom in the world since then, so just over 11 years. But there is still so much that I have to learn.
And I can imagine, because obviously you've got your podcast that's about, the archery world, and it's not really about, what's kind of cool is it's not about archery per se, it's about all the stuff around the archery world that your show's about. And I'm guessing each guest that comes on that, you mentioned, we don't know everything, have brought something that maybe you've learned as a complete out of the weird ballpark that you never knew beforehand until that particular guest appeared.
Yes, and that's why I have them on. Especially when it comes to technical aspects or equipment, that's not my thing. My thing is the support of my archer and the community. So having other people on just makes the circle full, right?
And is there anything that your son, either when he was first learning and really getting into archery, or since obviously he's started to, do it more professionally, if you like, and into what he's doing now in the Canadian scene, that maybe it surprised you because you wouldn't have expected that coming from your son, knowing him like you do as his mom?
Well, my son has an incredible ability to absorb information and organize it and present it in such a way that really proves what an amazing teacher, instructor, provider of information. And I'm not really surprised about that, but what surprises me is the amount of information that he just has in his brain. He can answer questions that are just shocking, and the detail and the love that he relays with this information astounds me every single time.
It's I feel that must be, how old is your son, if you don't mind me asking?
He's 25, actually.
25. So I feel that must be, as I mentioned, we've got 2 teen kids, so a little bit younger. But I do feel that must be like a skill that kids have to just surprise us. Our son, he loves soccer. It's why he's got a competitive player, and he's grown up, much like your son, in the last 10 years, just ensconced in soccer, much like your son is with archery. And the knowledge that he just pumps out, he'll forget to brush his teeth. He'll forget to, do the chores that he knows he should be doing each day. But if you ask him some random fact that he has no right in knowing because of his age and because it was done years before he was born, he will pull it out. And it blows my mind where that comes from.
100%. I totally understand. I can relate. I understand that bafflement that you experience as well.
Well, it's like you say, we're always here to learn, and I feel kids, because, certainly still to get to a certain age, maybe they'll lose a little bit of, not naivety, but a little bit of innocence about the world after a certain age. I'm not sure. I guess it depends, obviously, on, the person. But I do feel that while they've got that really wide open, sponge-like, skill to take so much information, and we should really encourage that to come out of them.
Definitely.
So I feel that was a nice one to get in there. And as you say, I completely 100% agree. We all need to be good listeners and teachers as much as, educators. So let's have a look and see what question number 2 brings up. I like this one. This is going to tell me a little bit more about you, Manisha. So question number 2, what was your best birthday?
I, in 2024, just turned 50, and I chose to go to New York City. I have been many times. It is a city that I really love. I love experiencing it. I love being there. I guess as a monumental birthday, it was a good one. I am someone who does enjoy birthdays. I'm not afraid to tell people my age. I'm not afraid to tell people when my birthday is. You know what? I'm actually going to say that any birthday is a good birthday. And it's just what I learn from the previous decade going into the next decade. I think the 40s were amazing, and going into the 50s, I'm so looking forward to it. So maybe when I turned 50 last year, that was the best one because it just brings forward newness and a confidence that just comes with age and life, and that is what excites me about birthdays. So I don't have one in particular, but just the fact of a birthday is a good one.
Do you think it's, because I know getting older myself, obviously your mindset changes and how you view maybe parts of life or parts of the world or the world around you as opposed to how you did 10 years ago, 20 years ago, etc. Do you think there's maybe a tipping point of an age in general where not like the light switch gets flicked on or flicked off or whatever, but you tend to just make that realization that, oh, I'm actually looking at things very differently now?
I don't think so, not for myself. For other people, I mean, I know somebody who I think she turned 28 4 times. She was turning 30, but she didn't want to admit that. Whether she has changed her perspective on that now, I'm not really sure, but I have always been someone who people maybe underestimated because I do tend to not, and this is going to sound weird, but I tend to not look my age. So I always would tell people that I'm a year older in the sense of, so I'm 50, but I'm going to be telling people this year that I'm going to be turning 51. It's just something that I've always done. So I've always looked forward to turning whatever age and being older. There was never a moment of a trigger of changing a life perspective or paradigm for me.
And you, you mentioned that you enjoy birthdays and you don't mind people knowing when it's your birthday, etc. Have you had surprise birthdays for other monumental occasions, like maybe your 40th or 30th, or is that something that people don't do because it's not, you already celebrate and you're very open about celebrating?
I despise birthday surprises. I despise surprises of any sort. And I believe it was when I turned 16, I think. My mother had a birthday party for me unexpectedly with my friends. Everybody held it as a secret. It infuriated me. And I absolutely hate surprise birthdays.
Would you walk out at all, or would you still stay and just unhappily go ahead with it?
If it were to happen nowadays, the scathing look of death that would be sent towards the person that thought it was a good idea, everybody would know that it was not. So I would probably placate the situation, but there would probably be words later.
Definitely be consequences. And I guess, normally like surprise parties are, as you mentioned, for milestone ones. So 16, 18, 21, I guess 30, 40, 50, maybe 60, 65, I'm not sure. So I guess, like you say, if people know, even if they didn't know you as a teen when you turned 16, if they tried, say, on your 30 or 40, and they knew then, and it's going to be, I'd imagine, roughly the same crowd, the same community, the same circle of friends, family, etc., that see other birthdays, like you say, they'd know, oh, you know what, we better not do that because someone is going to be hurt.
Well, and that to me baffles me is if you don't know that somebody you care about really does not like birthday surprises, or if you know that and you still do it, that is a huge breakdown in communication and trust that I am not cool with.
No, I hear you. I think I've only had one surprise party. My wife organised that for me for my 40th, and that was cool. I didn't mind it at all. I'd only been in Canada, I'm going to say 3-4 years maybe at that time. We'd gone to Niagara Falls, and then she'd up behind the scenes organised something for her mum and friends, etc. So that was a nice surprise, but I feel, especially as you get older, just the fright of it might just sort of do something that I don't want to happen at that time.
Yes, there's that too.
Well, we will certainly try and keep the surprises to a minimum here. But okay, so there you go. If you're trying to organise something as a surprise for Manisha, top tip, don't. Just don't. Don't do it. Let's have a look then at question number 3. Oh, I like this one because it kind of flips the script a little bit on accomplishments. So Manisha, question number 3. What dumb accomplishment are you most proud of?
That's an interesting one. What dumb accomplishment? I don't know if I have a dumb accomplishment. I guess there are accomplishments that I feel very proud of that other people think that are dumb. So, for example, as a cyclist, it's very common for me to just go out on my bike and cycle 150 or 160 kilometers in one go. A lot of people think that's just appalling or crazy or dumb, I guess. But for me, I don't know. That's a good question.
It is. I do like it because, as you say, it does kind of flip it a bit, right? It's because normally we like to talk about our accomplishments and recognise that. It's interesting you mentioned about the cycling. One of my previous guests, who I believe you know as well, actually, Toronto Mike Boone.
Mm-hmm.
He's obviously an avid cyclist. He's always posting, pictures on Instagram, etc., of the areas he's visiting in Toronto, and he'll think nothing of jumping on his bike and, as you mentioned, go 60, 100 kilometres and that's normal. Whereas, a non-biking person, I'm going to say that because that's a polite way of saying extremely unfit person like me, if I hear that distance, I'm thinking that would be a distance to drive as opposed to, cycle. I don't think it's dumb. I just can't wrap my head around that distance on a bike.
Yeah, and even when I do, so for example, I live in Niagara and I rode my bike to the Burlington Pier, and back, which is when you're driving down the QEW over the Skyway, it really does resonate how far that is, especially when you're going back in the same day. So yeah, it is even for me sometimes a little shocking that my body can do these things.
And for the listeners that don't know that distance, I used to live in Burlington, funnily enough, before we moved up to where we are now. And we'd go to Niagara. It's like maybe an hour, just under an hour in the car. But as you say on the bike, I could imagine a completely different ride. And the Skyway that Manisha mentioned there is a bridge that leads into, it's into Hamilton from Burlington. Hamilton's a city in southeastern Ontario. Southeastern, southwest, southern Ontario.
The Skyway is on the west side of Lake Ontario that divides the lake itself from the port of Hamilton. So it goes over that, and there is a lower bridge, and that's where you would ride your bike. But from St. Catharines to the Burlington Pier, which is downtown near Spencer Smith Park, it is close to 70 kilometers, but because you're on the road, that's as the bird flies. On the road, depending on your route, you could go up to about 70 or 80 kilometers one way. And then, of course, some of us choose to ride back.
In the same day. And I know my friend over in Chicago, she's a very competitive cyclist, and she swears by the cycling pants that she has. It has extra padding for your bum area.
Oh, yes.
Because I feel like even just me biking down the street, I would feel sore, after 10 minutes biking. But obviously you're wearing proper gear and proper padding, etc. So it's not quite as uncomfortable. It's obviously a lot of work, but at least the comfort factor is a bit better.
And, a lot of those of us who consider ourselves cyclists and a long distance cyclist, we are not necessarily people that have comfy seats. We have sort of aerodynamic, or we have high performance seats, so they're not cushy in any way. So, there is discomfort that happens on these long trips, and yet we still choose to do it.
And you mentioned, obviously, when I was introducing you at the start of the episode there, you've mentioned that you're particularly a gravel cyclist. So what's the difference between, say, a gravel cyclist and someone that does like road cycling or road biking, etc., and any other kind of cycling?
Yes. So it is actually a type of bike. So my evolution of cycling. For many, many years, I was a mountain biker. For many, many years, I did triathlon. For many years, I did road cycling, and now sort of graduated into gravel, which a gravel bike looks closer to a road bike because it will have the rounded handlebars opposed to the straight of a mountain bike. But the structure of the bike is actually geared to, you could go on the same trails as mountain biking. It is a lighter bike. Quite often they're swifter, if I'll use that terminology. And so gravel is more, those former railway trails that have been naturalized, or you could use it on the road. You can use it. It's a very multidisciplinary bike. It's much more versatile than, say, a mountain bike with thicker tires or a road bike with thinner tires. So it is really something that you can sort of conquest all, if you will.
You're right, because I'm aware of, like you say, like the mountain bikes, and they're such rough terrain, off-road beasts at times. I watch a lot of TikToks. Well, I don't watch a lot of TikToks. I'll watch it when I'm bored and I scroll and I've got nothing else to do. But often I see these GoPro first-person viewpoints of people on dirt bikes or mountain bikes, going down these really narrow, super fast, through trees and everything. Do you do something similar to that at times with you off-roading?
Not with ramps or like the cyclocross. I'm not into that. I do enjoy not being injured. My mountain bike days, I was definitely no fear and would not really jump off things, but I had no fear for the type of terrain. But now, as you get older, you don't really want to get hurt because it takes a lot longer to heal from.
I hear you. I get hurt, just wake up in the morning and get out of bed. So I hear you on that, Manisha. I'm all for that. So there you go. Dumb accomplishment, not quite as dumb as, dumb would suggest, but I do like that. And as I say, kudos to anybody that can go more than 10 kilometers on a bike and not be out of breath and tired. So 100% kudos to you there, Manisha.
Do you love being surprised by an interesting story from an unlikely source? So do we at the Baggage Podcast, where four friends, a doctor, a prosecutor, a comedian, and a writer, interview ordinary people about their extraordinary experiences. There's the Vietnam vet recounting his war stories from 50 plus years ago, or the COVID virologist trying to do her job at the height of the pandemic. There's also the comedian who had a fatal asthma attack during a show. That's right, I said fatal. We've had these and many other fascinating guests and continue to find more all the time. So if any of this sounds interesting to you, check us out. Search for Baggage wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey there, Danny here. This podcast will forever be free to listen to. But if you enjoy 5 Random Questions and get value from the show and want to support it, you can do that with a donation of your choosing over at 5randomquestions.com/support. And thanks so much for supporting the show. Now, back to this week's episode. So let's have a look then at question number 4. And this kind of ties back actually to the early question, or the first question we had to open up the episode. So question number 4, Manisha. When was the last time you changed your opinion about something major?
So with the upcoming Ontario election, or federal election actually, I did change my mind on who I'm going to vote for, because although I have been for a very long time a supporter of a particular party, I decided to change who I'm going to vote for, which is, for me, it matters a lot. Voting is very important to me, and changing my mind on who I am going to vote for after voting this way for a very long time, is different. There's a little bit of emotion behind it, but I think that, I'm doing it for the purposes that I feel necessary.
It's interesting. I mean, it's an interesting time in Canada and the world, I guess, at the minute, with everything that's going on. But with our election coming up this year, we just had one, as you mentioned, in Ontario, and now we've got the federal one coming too. Do you ever vote, and you don't have to, obviously, I completely respect your privacy when it comes to who and why you vote, etc. Do you ever vote strategically to keep another party out? It might not be the vote you want to cast, but that person has the best chance to keep in the opposition that you really don't want to get into power out of there.
So I am voting strategically this year for this election.
And I'm wondering how much and I don't want to get too political. This show is definitely not a political podcast.
No problem.
And I rarely, talk politics. It pops up now and again like it just has here, and that's all good. But I'm wondering if the current situation with the US administration, not the US, but the US administration, just to keep it crystal clear, has changed a lot of minds as well as to people that might have voted one way previously but now won't, because they see one party as being maybe the best place to stand up more for Canadians' interests. I'm not sure how you feel on that at all.
I believe that, yes, that is happening. I am someone that travels into the US quite a number of times per year. And I am hearing from people, and I do have a significant community. It is an archery community that I travel for. It's very, very interesting to be part of that community of Americans who are choosing to voice their opinions to me about various things. And yes, it is affecting everybody across the board.
It will be interesting to see. And I feel we can probably put a pin in that one. I completely understand and fully support you're keeping that nice close to your chest. And I would probably do the same. So let's move on. We're doing well here. Let's move on to question number 5. Okay, this cannot be the one that your podcast is about. So anyway, question number 5, Manisha. What talent will you show off in a talent show?
I can whistle really accurately to songs. It's just something, even as a young person, or hum or whistle. That's a weird, strange talent, I guess. I used to be, many, many years ago, a singer, and I was part of a choir that actually traveled around parts of the world. And music, although I cannot sing anymore, whistling, yeah, you can put on a song that I know, and I would actually be able to hit the high notes. Whistling, it's weird.
And when you're whistling, because I know some people have got very different ways to whistle. My wife, I've got I'm going to say a stereotypical Brit. If you think of British people, you think, okay, you've got bad food, bad teeth, and I would say yes to both. So when I whistle, I can sort of whistle without doing the O shape. I can just sort of, as I'm speaking now, if my mouth was like this shape, like rectangular, I can just blow air through and make a whistle that way. Is that something, when you're whistling, do you get the full on, I'm going to get the big O coming here, the big O in my mouth shape, and get that notes out that way, or?
Yeah, I guess so. I never really thought of it. What I cannot do, although I do boast about my song whistling rather than lyrics singing, I wish I could do, when people whistle to call out for somebody and it's really loud and it's vibrant, I cannot do that. So I can whistle to a song, but not anything like that. No, yeah, I guess, yeah. Because it's all in the physiology of how you whistle to be able to hit the different notes, right?
Well, it's funny. It's I always think of the Whistle While You Work, a song from the Snow White and the Sound of Dwarf movie. That's the one that I immediately think of when you mentioned whistling. I thought, whistle while you work. So it's you mentioned there that you can't do the call-in one. Is it like a different, because it's not a tune or a song, is it like a different mindset or approach then?
No, I don't think I actually know the process. I don't know. But I think it's so cool when people can do that. Not the fact that they're actually calling somebody, because that's always weird too. But the fact that they can do it and it's loud, I don't know. I think it's a skill.
I know someone where we live, actually. We're surrounded, and you'd be similar, imagine being in Niagara, surrounded by, water, nature, etc. And there's a neighbour, I'm going to say neighbour, he's about 15, 20 minutes away, because it's like a rural village we live in, but he's classed as a neighbour. But he likes to converse with the birds. And he can almost imitate to a T each bird song or each bird that appears. So you got spring coming, you know what to expect. Spring disappears and like the hummingbirds are starting to go away and like other birds are coming in, so you'll start talking to them. And it's cool to see. You know, I'm super jealous. Like you mentioned earlier, I don't know, is that something you'd want to do, or are you more than happy with the whistling of the tunes that you have?
Yeah, it's just sort of my thing. I'm it's just my thing. I'm not doing it for anyone, or it's just me connecting to the music.
Well, if you're up for it, because I know we met in person last year actually in Calgary at the Pod Summit event, and if you're up for it, I mean, if you're going again this year or a future event that we're at the same time, my party trick, not party trick as such, is playing any tune as long as I know it with a pencil against my teeth. So I get the pencil and I play it with my fingers and play the tune with my fingers on this pencil. So if you want to do a duet, we can do that as a sort of icebreaker trick at a networking event or something.
Oh, that'd be funny. Okay, listeners, you hear it here first. Danny and I, we're going on the road. Our first gig will be at YYC Pod Summit YYC coming up in, September?
I think it's September, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Third week September over in Calgary in Alberta, Canada.
Okay, so I'll do the marketing, you do the merch?
Yeah, that sounds good. We'll get Tim the founder, he can get on that as well, get some like media in there.
Yes, that's funny.
Awesome. Well, Manisha, we've survived. You've done all the hard work. You've survived the 5 random questions hot seat, as is only fair for every guest, because I put you on the spot for the last 35 minutes or so. It is now your turn to put me in the hot seat and throw your random question at me.
So, Danny, one of the questions that I often ask for as a resource for parents, because my podcast is the Archery Parent Podcast, one question that I ask many people, whether it be a coach, archers themselves, or archery parents, is if there is one thing that you could tell another parent. So I'm saying this because you've got 2 athletes in your home. So you've got a cheer athlete and you've got a soccer athlete. If there was one thing that you could tell another parent whose child is interested in going into one of those sports, what would you tell that parent as sort of a heads up?
Mm-hmm. I mean, the obvious one is say goodbye to family vacations, because all your money will go into your child's sport. That'd be the obvious one right off. I don't know what the archery world's like for competitions and travel and events, etc. But yeah, I would say, and my wife, like, she's the one that travels the most with her kids for their events, etc. So she knows exactly how much goes into paying for hotels, paying for equipment, paying for XYZ. So I would say that the obvious one would be, the cost is something. But I guess because that's the obvious one, you want to sort of try offer a different one as well. And I would say just get ready for them to be super, super independent. Obviously, it depends what age your kids go into the sport and when they start it. And obviously, your son was a teen when he started. Our kids were a bit younger. My daughter less so. My son definitely younger when he started. But as far as competitive, they were both very close to being teens. And we've seen the change in them over the last sort of 2-3 years when they've really been at the competitive level, which is great, but it's also not so great because as a parent, you want to be that person they come to. And they'll still come to you, but now it's generally for, hey, Dad, can I have $20 because I'm going to do this? Or, I want to hang out with the pool or whatever with my friends and we need to get some drinks. So yeah, I would say one is the obvious one is the cost. It's like crazy amount of money that you spend. But the second, just get ready for not being as needed by your child as much. I don't know if that was the same for you with your son.
Same. So with archery, we travel all over Canada, all over the US, and now my son is traveling to Korea and Turkey and Colombia and Spain. So yes, those expenses just get a wee bit higher. And archery has a significant amount of equipment. And when you're a high performance athlete, on the competitive stage internationally, you need to carry 2 to 3 of everything. That is a lot of money. And you need to hope that all of your equipment gets to the venue.
I could imagine. And I would also imagine as well, because of it being such a very specific skill set, does your son use arrows that are tailored to his preference as opposed to not just like arrows that you'd buy at Costco? But that's a ridiculous example. But I would imagine he uses custom tailored arrows as well as his actual bow, which would be hard to replace and couldn't do easily if something happened to them mid-transit.
What is amazing, so just to refer to the arrows are Easton X10 performance arrows, which cost approximately $120 each. And most archers will carry at least 2 dozen, sometimes 3 dozen with them. So that is a small fortune in itself. But yes, one of the things when traveling, because international athletes do carry 2 of each, to mitigate the potential for loss or in quotation marks, a redirection of equipment at times, one archer will take one other archer's half of their equipment so that it is hopeful that it won't, if you do lose some of it or it's temporarily lost, at least you have a backup. So everyone usually carries a backup bow. But even that, it's just investment over investment. And yes, for what you were saying about family vacations, yes, there are archery-related family vacations. A lot of families, because we're traveling around, will try to tack on a day or two and make it into a vacation where everybody shows up. But 4 of those days are archery tournaments, which, can be quite boring for some people. But yes, having a non-archery related holiday is very rare, for sure.
Yeah, well, I hear you. I completely hear you on that. And that was a cool question. I've definitely not been asked that before, and I do appreciate the question, Manisha. So again, I really appreciate getting your answers to this episode's questions. For anybody that wants to learn more about Manisha, your archery podcast, what goes into life behind the scenes and in and around the podcast, and seeing that obviously you and your son's involved in, and your guests and your community, where's the best place that they can catch up with you online, listen to the podcast, etc.?
Thank you. So the Archery Parent Podcast is what archery parents need to know to best support their archers. Our episodes can be found at archeryparentpodcast.ca or wherever you get your podcasts. And we have a lot of great content in video version on Instagram, but we are also on Blue Sky, Threads, and even TikTok, which is really fascinating to be on. I've been uploading a lot of video there, and the response has been great. And for such a niche, so not only is it an archery podcast, it's a podcast by an archery mom for other archery parents, which is pretty much the nichiest of niche that you can hit. And the response has just been fantastic. So I'm very, very pleased with the way it's been going. And we just started uploading our episodes to YouTube as well. So we're just trying to get around to a little bit of everywhere.
And I will be sure to leave all these links in the show notes as usual. So whatever podcast app you're listening on, be sure to check the show notes out, and that will link straight through to Manisha. And everywhere you can find her online, maybe not everywhere, but all the important places for the Archery Podcast and Manisha's podcast there. So again, Manisha, thank you for appearing on today's 5 Random Questions.
Thank you so much for having me on, Danny.
Thanks for listening to 5 Random Questions. If you enjoyed this week's episode, I'd love for you to leave a review on the app you're currently listening on. And if you know someone else that would enjoy the show too, be sure to send them this way. It's very much appreciated. Until the next time, keep asking those questions.